Hello guys, welcome back to Lawgics video. Today we are not looking at another case, and like last time, we are interviewing another person. Today we're introducing a lawyer from Harvard Law. And yeah, let's get right into it. Welcome back to Lawgics. Today we have Nick Kelly here with us. Do you mind giving us an introduction about everything about you?
Sure. My name is Nicholas Kelly. I am a rising 1L at Harvard Law School. Uh, Recently graduated from Harvard College, where I studied economics and computer science. Born and raised in the Washington, D.C. area. And I'm excited to be here with you today, Sheva.
Alright. Okay, so let's kind of just get right into it. Uh, what brought you into law?
Yeah, so I had a pretty early exposure to being a lawyer and the law in general. My mom went to law school, and so it was something that I was aware of very early on. My grandfather also he received his law degree as well, so it was a path that I knew about. But once I got into high school and into college and started participating in things like debate and things like that, I realized that I had a passion for doing things like critical thinking, logical thinking, and reading and writing. And I felt that those were really my strengths. So I went to a liberal arts high school and then went to a liberal arts college. And then so I got a real opportunity to really hone those skills. And as I developed those skills, I found that it was something that I enjoyed and that, I was decently good at. And, it made sense to me that this would be a natural path for me to want to um, pursue in effort to kind of like make a positive change, and that the law would be my vehicle to making a positive impact in the world. And so that's kind of how I thought about it. And as I learned more about what it meant to be in the law, it really kind of spoke to me. I love working with people and being of service. And so the law was a natural path for me. And yeah.
Alright, yeah, that's good. So you were basically kind of like born into law. Your mom was a lawyer, and
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if I was so much born into it. So my mom went to law school. She didn't practice for too long, or if at all. And so I wasn't exposed to, like, I think I was more just sort of like exposed to it as opposed to really got a sense for what it meant to be a lawyer. And that's something that I've kind of like been able to explore even more recently. About what it really means to be a lawyer, because I think there's a lot, and I think that practicing the law isn't always kind of like what it might seem at face value. And so I it's been really cool to be able to kind of like explore that as I've gotten older. But it was definitely something I knew about uh
yeah.
very, very early on, for sure.
Alright, yeah. So okay, that makes more sense now. Sense now.
Absolutely.
uh, okay. So Logix is basically a website that I've created where I kind of talk about law and ethics. Now, what is your experience in ethics when it comes to law, if you have any?
Yeah, so I haven't been able to really like kind of engage with actually, I don't know if that's true. I think when I think about ethics and the law, I have a couple thoughts. Like I said, I haven't been able to, be in the law for too long now. Still haven't started law school. I've held, kind of a one or two legal adjacent jobs. And from what I've seen and from what I understand and from what I have experienced, ethics is an incredibly important part of being in the law, practicing law, and what it means to be a lawyer. I mean, even just if you think about, what it takes to be a lawyer, I mean, the bar has a, character and fitness section in order to, get your, to be a bar attorney. And from my perspective, I think it rightfully so is a huge part of the law. I mean, when you're a lawyer and you're dealing with things like rules and justice and what things should be and what the law says, and how, and I mean, these things are things that impact people and real have impact on real people, and making sure that you're acting ethically and making sure that you're doing your best to, uphold ethical law is, I think, a really big part of what it means to be a lawyer. And so those are kind of just like my thoughts. I don't think I have a very like personal kind of anecdote just yet. Like I said, just haven't been kind of in the space long enough, but it's definitely something that you hear about from folks, and it's definitely something that people are thinking about. And I think it is something that's incredibly important for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree with that. The whole reason why I brought up ethics was I feel like it's somewhat unique, but it's still known in law because it's not always highlighted, but it's good to know that it's there in the background because I think it's very
Mm,
important. So, yeah. So,
absolutely, absolutely,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Were you going to say anything?
No, no, I was gonna say, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big factor, and something that lawyers, ought to always be thinking about as they, go about their days, upholding, and whether that's, just like even things as basic as, client confidentiality, making sure you're upholding your duty to your clients, upholding your duty to your, colleagues, and to, unto the law at large. So definitely, yeah.
All right. So, you said earlier that you did debate and you did like other school activities that brought you into law as well.
Mhm.
What was your process getting into law? Like how you got into it, what made you stay in law, and like what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I had like I said, so after I kind of got exposed to it early on, I it kind of pushed me towards doing those more like reading and writing esque activities like debate. I did like a mock trial camp in high school, and I really, really enjoyed those. There was something really like I want to use the word fun about like being able to have a debate, a discussion, go back and forth, think critically, think on your feet, and I think those skills I enjoyed really like kind of flexing and strengthening those muscles. And so as I did those kind of activities in high school, and I realized it was something that I enjoyed, I knew that it was something that I wanted to pursue a little bit longer term. And so in college, I did a little bit of debating, but I didn't really keep up with it so much in college, and spent a lot more time just kind of on the academic side. Um, but it was definitely something that I really enjoyed in high school and knew that I wanted to pursue. And then um, it's also something that I'm kind of thinking about now as I've decided, what type of law that I want to do. Right now, I'm leaning towards becoming a little bit more of a litigator because I really enjoyed that part of the law, is, thinking on your feet, drafting arguments, responding to arguments, as opposed to, doing more transactional work, which is also equally interesting. But I feel a little bit kind of more compelled to the litigation side, largely informed by kind of my previous experiences with that type of thinking and speaking. And so that's kind of how I navigated through and kind of like got pushed to this point. And so we have yet to see what exactly specific practice area that lands me in. That's kind of been my other goal is of late, is figure out exactly what kind of law I want to practice. And so now that I've figured out, I definitely want to be a lawyer and want to be a litigator. Next step is to figure out exactly what that looks like a little bit more.
I think that's really important. Like I think I also find all aspects of law are equally interesting, but in the end, I think it's what comes down to your personal like interest, whether it comes from like fun, more opinions, personal matters, or whatever like that, which I think is important. And yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's a lot of it is you kind of just got to see what's out there, and a lot of it is just learning about different areas and seeing, okay, I loved this, I hated this, I want to do this, I want to do that, and it kind of like comes out over time. And so I'd like to think I have a little bit of time to figure it out. Who knows if that's actually the case? I've heard it both ways, that you got a lot of time, you don't got a lot of time. And so we'll see. But yeah, I definitely agree. Folks, you just have to kind of let your interests guide your career paths, and see what opportunities are out there for sure.
Mm-hmm. So now moving away from that topic, still kind of similar. What like classes did you take in your like undergrad before
Mhm.
getting into law school? What did you take there that made you pursue law and get you into law school?
Yeah, so I actually took a little bit kind of a different approach on this. A lot of folks go, the political science or the government route. So I studied economics with a minor in computer science. Um, I really enjoyed econ because I took some econ classes like, AP micro, AP macro in high school and really enjoyed those. And I really enjoyed studying kind of how people interacted with each other. And so I knew that, econ was a law adjacent field, and so that it would be a cool thing to study if this is something that I knew that I wanted to get into longer term. But I also wanted to study computer science because I knew that the world is very tech heavy, and as we move to an increasingly tech world, like even professions like being a lawyer and the law are going to have to adapt to a tech world. Even there's whether it's the role of AI in drafting a brief or just like, tech policy, space policy. I mean, all of these are very kind of like emerging fields that I felt it would be very important to have at least the understanding, the technical understanding to be able to engage with that type of work. And frankly, I was also interested in doing some sort of like tech law. There's a world where, there is a world rather where I, do space law and, something like that. Because, I had always been interested in kind of the overlap between technology and the law. And so I let that kind of like inform why I wanted to do the CS minor. So I kind of pursued my interest a little bit studying econ. It wasn't too big of a jump away from things like government and political science, but also added a little computer science flavor to stay tech fluent and to be able to pivot into a tech adjacent law role if I needed to or wanted to down the line.
Yeah. So speaking of tech, AI is becoming really big right now. How do you think that AI will do you think AI will change the law in any way?
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll have a huge impact, and it's something that that's a question that I'm asking myself too. It'd be really interesting, in just even over the next like 3 years to see like, as I go through law school, how AI has impacted, like I said, I mean, things like drafting briefs, things like legal research. And I mean, it's tough because, and I think this kind of ties into, your ethics question earlier is, where is the line between, letting, AI do too much of the work, using AI to be efficient. And I think like a lot of these things are questions that the legal field is going to have to answer over the next couple of years, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, unfortunately, I've even seen some folks getting in trouble for using AI the wrong way with judges, and it's just not, it's not. I mean, it's unfortunate, but these are like, I mean, these are questions that folks are going to have to answer, and I think this is where ethics plays a big role. You have to make sure that you're answering these questions ethically with the your duty to your client and to other folks in mind. So who knows? Maybe one day we'll all have AI lawyers. Who knows?
I think that's really interesting. But the thing is, AI, it's in the end a computer. So is what it says really ethical all the time? Or is it actually just someone behind a computer, just programming to say something that satisfies the user's needs?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I think that's especially important to think about in a field like the law when you have like, like I said earlier, like real people's kind of like lives at stake and real outcomes for folks, making sure that, despite what the computer is outputting, like you're using your brain as well to think about it and to make sure that, you know, whatever you're submitting or whatever you're counseling your client on is is really the best thing and is not, the quick chat answer from a prompt.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah. Uh, I have one. I have like another question.
sure.
So you still have 3 more years left in law. Now, if you had to give advice to a high school student like me, or maybe even a middle school student who's going into high school, what would it be about law?
It's a good question. Um, I would say that like I think there's a lot of value in like doing things like debate and the like mock trial and things like that. I would say just explore your interests. I mean, I think, folks who are in high school and especially, middle school are young enough that like, you don't have to make a hard, concrete decision. And like, it may be something that you don't like now, and it may be something you revisit in college and you're like, oh, this actually, I do enjoy doing this type of work. And that's also totally cool. I mean, you guys have like all the time in the world, right? And like my biggest advice to high school students who are, you know, focused on, want to be lawyers is just, do your homework and go to class. And like, I mean, like that's like the biggest like piece of advice I would give is to really like, build those habits and discipline early, because once you get into like a place like, law school and even beyond as you're practicing as a lawyer, requires a lot of discipline and focus, and you have to be able to work. I mean, there's a lot, tons of lawyers work extremely long hours, and you have to have the kind of self-discipline to be able to work hard and to manage that type of stress. And a lot of that comes from the habits you built early. So I mean, I would definitely say, if you are thinking about the law as being, a potential path for you, definitely explore that, read up on it, talk to folks. But don't feel like you have there's a lot of pressure to commit to something. And then also like, just take care of the little things, get enough sleep and, do your homework.
So basically, just like kind of cover all basic high school needs and also explore more.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, like that's something that I'm still trying to do right now. Is just explore. And I think it's a, not to get all deep, but I think it is a little bit kind of like what life is about is just exploring and seeing what your interests are, and where your passion lies. And then if you're fortunate enough to find it at a younger age, really digging into that type of work and getting super involved. I mean, I see tons of folks who have known from age 12 that like they were super passionate about environmental issues or the law or computer science or something like that, and like they were able to like kind of really dig into those things. But it's also okay if you don't like the thing that you're currently doing. It's always okay to make a pivot. So that would be my big advice. I know it's not super groundbreaking advice, but
I mean,
that's what
advice
I would
doesn't
say.
have to be groundbreaking. It just has to be like if it worthwhile. And I think this was like worthwhile advice. And yeah,
Absolutely.
it was. With on that note, that was a great way to end. Thank you so much for joining us,
Of
and
course.
it was really nice interviewing you and looking at your story, where you were from. And I really hope that we can interview again sometime.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm always happy to hop back on. So
Yep.
thanks
All
so
right.
much, Shiva.
Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.